Cozy English Podcast.
Think confidently. Speak naturally.
Lucas, have you ever been right in the middle of answering a completely normal question at work or a dinner party and suddenly realize you have absolutely no idea how you got to the sentence you are currently saying?
Oh, tell me about it. You look at the expressions of the people sitting across from you, you see their eyes glazing over, and you realize you have completely lost your train of thought. You are just wandering around verbally, hoping a clear point miraculously invents itself before you run out of breath.
It is one of the single most uncomfortable, panic-inducing feelings in human communication. But losing your train of thought almost never happens because you don't know enough about a topic. It actually happens because you know too much, and your brain floods with information all at once. Today, we're breaking down a beautifully simple cognitive blueprint called the 3-2-1 answer trick that completely eliminates this mental freeze by giving your thoughts a clean beginning, a middle, and a definitive landing zone before you even open your mouth.
When you're navigating a second language at a B1 or B2 level, that information flood creates a massive cognitive overload. Your brain is trying to handle vocabulary search, grammar mechanics, and sentence direction all at the exact same time, which instantly triggers a mental traffic jam.
Exactly. So instead of running that stressful translation factory in the background, you use this trick to choose your lane before you speak. When someone finishes asking you a question, you have a 4-second window to pause and choose one of 3 distinct mental shapes. Am I going to say one thing, describe 2 types, or walk through 3 steps?
Let's break down option number 1, the one thing method. This means committing completely to your single most important point and leading with it directly, rather than trying to cover every random detail you know about a topic. You state that main point clearly, develop it with 2 supporting sentences, and then you deliberately stop talking.
That sounds incredibly simple, but it requires a lot of conversational courage because you have to actually commit to an opinion. A lot of intermediate language learners hesitate here because they are terrified of being wrong. So instead of stating a clear point, they hedge. They start their sentences with safe, empty phrases like, well, there are many factors to consider. It really depends on the situation. It's highly complicated.
Let's look at exactly how that looks in practice when someone asks an open question like, what makes a city worth living in? A typical ramblin' answer sounds like this. Well, it depends, because a city has many things, like, for example, the food scene is good, but also public transport is important, and maybe green spaces are nice too, so there are many advantages and disadvantages.
Look at that answer. It says absolutely nothing. It's just a verbal safety blanket that protects the speaker from being wrong by keeping the answer completely empty of substance. The listener's brain instantly shuts off because there's no real thought to hold on to.
Now look at how much more powerful it sounds when you use the one thing method to slice through that traffic jam. Honestly, the one thing that makes a city worth living in is how easy it is to exist there without owning a car.
Suddenly, we have a real conversation. Even if the person listening to you completely disagrees, you have handed them a clear idea to respond to, and your brain can now focus on expanding just that one concept instead of fighting a chaotic cloud of data.
But what if you're wrong or someone challenges your point? That fear is what causes the rambling in the first place.
You have to realize that being wrong in a conversation is completely fine. Spontaneously saying, wow, actually, you make a great point, let me change my mind about that, doesn't make you look weak. It shows you are a confident, dynamic listener who is actively engaged. Let's model this right now with a different topic. Lucas, ask me an open question.
Nora, in your opinion, what is the absolute hardest part of learning a new language?
Honestly, the hardest part is the exact moment you try to stop translating in your head and force yourself to start thinking directly in the new language. Until that mental shift happens, your brain suffers from an exhausting delay, where it's constantly running a translation factory in the background. The moment that delay disappears is the moment the language truly becomes yours.
Oh, wow. Notice how you could have listed vocabulary lists, pronunciation, or grammar rules, but you chose one single insight. Because you led it with it directly, I never had to guess what your point was. You did the heavy work of filtering your thoughts before you spoke, which highly respects the listener's attention.
This feels like a natural place to pause and welcome everyone to the Cozy English Podcast. If you're just joining us, I'm Nora, and this is Lucas. We build this space every single week to help intermediate learners move away from rigid textbook drills and step into real, authentic human conversation.
If this 3-2-1 blueprint is currently helping your mind find some clarity today, do us a quick favor. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel right now. It takes literally 1 second, and it genuinely helps our independent podcast reach more language learners around the world who are struggling with this exact same mental freeze.
Absolutely. Let's pivot straight into option number 2 because it builds beautifully on this idea of filtering your thoughts.
Option number 2 is the 2 types contrast. This is your ultimate framework whenever a question reveals a natural comparison or an interesting clash between 2 completely different worldviews or approaches.
Instead of launching into a long, unstructured personal story that wanders off into a tangent, you structure your entire response as a clean comparison right from your very first sentence. You set the stage by announcing, "There are really 2 kinds of professionals in this industry," or, "I think there are basically 2 ways people tend to respond to a major career failure."
The psychological impact of this strategy on human attention is massive because the absolute second you say the words 2 types, the listener's brain automatically creates a state of anticipation. Their mind instantly flags it as an engaging story and wonders, okay, what are the 2? Let me hear them. The architecture of the answer does half the work of keeping them hooked before you even deliver the specific details.
Let's look at the bad model first so we can see the trap. If someone asks you, "What makes a good business leader?" a rambling intermediate response often sounds like this. A good leader has many skills. They need to talk to workers nicely, and also they must make profit, and sometimes they work long hours. And I had a boss who was very mean, but a good leader is different.
That answer is a complete maze. The speaker's just throwing random thoughts at the wall, hoping the listener will do the hard work of organizing them.
Exactly. Now look at how much more powerful it sounds when you use the 2 types contrast shape to slice through that traffic jam. Honestly, there are basically 2 types of business leaders. On one hand, you have leaders who are driven entirely by control, where every decision has to go through them. But on the other hand, you have leaders who are driven by empowerment, where they give their team the freedom to make mistakes.
Right. Look at how much cleaner that sounds. You didn't use a single advanced or academic word, yet the answer sounds incredibly sophisticated because the binary shape makes the idea instantly sticky.
And notice what that does to your speaking delivery. Because your mind knows there are only 2 categories coming out of your mouth, your brain naturally inserts a deliberate pause between type 1 and type 2. That pause gives the listener time to digest the first concept before you hit them with the second one, completely eliminating the rushed, panicked speech patterns that kill fluency. Let's model this live. Ask me a question about human relationships.
Nora, in your opinion, what is the secret to building a truly lasting friendship?
Oh, I think there are 2 distinct types of friendships that stand the test of time. On one hand, you have friendships that are held together by years of shared memories. You went to school together, survived tough times, and that history is the permanent anchor. But, on the other hand, there are those rare connections built on genuine curiosity, where even without a past, you are endlessly fascinated by how the other person thinks and sees the world.
That was a textbook execution of making the structure completely invisible. You didn't say type 1 or type 2, you used the narrative bridge on one hand, but on the other hand. The listener feels the perfect organization of your thought, but it sounds like organic, elegant conversation rather than a rigid presentation.
That brings us perfectly to our third and final option, the 3-step journey. This is the ideal cognitive shape to use whenever your answer describes a process, a change over time, or a structural sequence where the chronological order truly matters.
While 2 items are great for setting up a sharp contrast, 3 items naturally create a complete mini-story with a definitive beginning, a middle, and a satisfying final resolution. It gives the person listening to you a comforting sense of total completeness.
But we have to issue a massive warning here. Do not use this framework to create a long, exhausting shopping list of random points. If you spend 2 minutes rambling on point number 1, you completely break the momentum of the script. The secret to keeping this section high velocity is to keep each step limited to 1 or 2 punchy sentences.
Let's look at the wrong way to answer a process question like, how do you adapt to living in a new country? A rambling speaker will say, first, you must find a house, which is very hard and expensive, and then you need to learn the language because shopping is difficult, and also you miss your family a lot, and then third, you make friends at work.
That answer feels like a heavy weight because it's just a flat list of problems. Now, look at how we can elevate that exact same answer using an invisible timeline structure. It always starts with pure survival, where you are just trying to figure out housing and basic transport. Then you naturally shift into a phase of performance, where you are trying to learn the local social rules and fit in, until finally you reach a state of belonging, where the new culture actually feels like home.
The narrative bridge there is flawless. Instead of counting 1, 2, 3, you used it always starts with, then you naturally shift into, until finally. The listener is carried along a visual timeline. They aren't wondering when your answer is going to end because they can clearly see the final destination approaching. Let's model this live. What is your best advice for someone who wants to conquer their fear of public speaking?
There are 3 distinct chronological stages almost everyone has to pass through. It always starts with pure survival, where your only goal is to get through the presentation without freezing up.
Right, just surviving the panic. Then what?
Then you naturally shift into conscious performance, where you start actively focusing on your vocal technique, your pacing, and your body language, until finally you reach that 3rd stage, complete release, where you forget about the rules entirely and simply focus on connecting with the human beings in the room.
Wow, that had incredible movement. It held my attention completely because I was actively waiting to see where the journey would land, and you finished without a single second of wasted breath.
Now, what happens if you are mid-answer and you realize you chose the wrong shape? What if you started building a 3-steps timeline, but your mind goes completely blank on step number 3?
First of all, do not panic. A communication mistake is never a crisis unless you let your face show the panic. If a path fails, you can pivot gracefully in real time without the listener ever knowing you messed up.
Exactly. You can look at the other person and say, actually, the more I think about it, the core issue really comes down to one single factor. Boom. With that one simple sentence, you have anytime pivoted from a broken 3-step list into a sharp, powerful one-thing statement.
That is an elite conversational move because it shows absolute control over your thoughts. Remember, the clarity of your speech is always a direct reflection of the organization of your thinking. Real confidence in a foreign language doesn't come from memorizing every single advanced word in the dictionary. True confidence is simply knowing exactly where your sentence is going to land before you even open your mouth.
When you master this 3-2-1 trick, your speaking anxiety drops to near 0 because you no longer fear open-ended questions. It is so important to realize you possess an internal factory that can instantly stamp any chaotic cloud of information into a clean, beautiful shape.
Wait, we want you to challenge yourself to test this specific tool today. Don't wait for a high-pressure job interview or a massive company presentation to try it out. Start in a low-stakes environment. When a coworker asks you what you did over the weekend, or when a friend asks for your opinion on a movie, pause for a split second, select one of the 3 shapes, and deliver it.
Pay close attention to how it feels to reach the definitive end of your sentence, knowing you actually landed safely on your feet. If this 3-2-1 blueprint brought real value to your mindset today, hit that like button and subscribe to our channel right now to help more independent language learners find our studio.
Please drop a comment right below this video and tell us which of these 3 answer shapes feels most natural to your brain style of thinking right now. The one thing, the 2 types, or the 3 steps.
We read and respond to every single comment on this channel. Keep practicing, think confidently, speak naturally, and we'll catch you all in the very next episode.
Bye-bye.